Hi, everybody. Kim Winter here from Logistics Executive Group. Thanks so much for joining us today. Special guest today from the continent of Africa. This young lady is a supply chain professional, highly qualified, which we're going to hear about shortly, and running her own business. So she's an entrepreneur, she's a mum, she's a leader, she's actually one of the 100 most influential supply chain women in Africa. So very pleased to have her join us today. Lerato Thabede. Hey, Lerato, how are you?
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much. It's so awesome to be with you.
And how did I go with the pronunciation?
You know what? You should relocate to South Africa. You've got this.
Have been there, love the place. Hey, Lerato, give us a bit of a heads up on your background. We always ask our special guests to give us a bit of a rundown on their upbringing, their early part of their journey, both personally and professionally. And then let's just talk about supply chain, what's going on in South Africa, what's going on with your business, and what are your passions around the industry?
Thank you, Kim. You know, as a young person that is from what people call the dark continent, which is probably the brightest and richest continent in the world. I grew up in Soweto in the southwestern township of South Africa. I mean, that is the township that's got 2 Peace Nobel winners, right? We've got Mandela and we've got Bishop Desmond Tutu. So I grew up in Soweto, not in the greatest of circumstances. And in 1988, I'm giving away my age, but in 1988, we didn't have much of a supply chain and it was not known. But I grew up there during the rioting, and I got the opportunity to go and study in what we call a former Model C school right now, which was when the integration started to happen. So, you know, my background is more from a township background. So, you know, less poverty and generally just hardships around the economic environment that I grew up. But I've got opportunities and I'm very grateful for those. I studied, I did my matric, and I ended up in this fascinating world. If you don't mind, I'll just take you through how I even got into the supply chain.
Please do.
Of course. So in matric, when I was growing up, you had a few options. Every parent wanted their child to be either an accountant, a doctor, a lawyer, or a teacher.
Of course.
And my mother wanted me to get into IT because my uncle had made waves in IT. And she was like, your uncle drives a BMW. So you'll make money if you go into IT. And I was like, okay, fine. You know, I'll get into IT. So my grades were good. I'll be proud of that. So I got into the first institution, which is the University of Johannesburg right now, to study IT. However, I found the world of explosives. I started VAC work for a company called Detonate back in the day. I think it's still called Detonate. And they were making electronic detonators. And I got really fascinated by the engineering aspect. So when I went to register the following year, I started in my matric year. So the following year was registration, which was first year. I went into engineering and I thought, you know what? I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to be an explosives engineer. And Kim, I don't want to lie, it showed me flames. So, so after about 2 years, you know what, it didn't work out. I was like, nah, I'm not built to be an engineer. I had been sponsored by the company that I had mentioned. So I let them know to say, hey, look, guys, engineering is not working. So I need something to do right now. Give me some work. And they said, you know what? Come here. So how I got introduced into supply chain, Kim, very interestingly, was by slapping labels on boxes of detonators that were going around the world.
Wow.
And that was my first stint of, you know, a supply chain. And even back then, we hadn't really defined supply chain as we've defined it now. It was still logistics. And in South Africa, we did not have a degree or a diploma that was supply chain. So I went into logistics. So my background starts from studying BCom, Bachelor of Commerce in logistics. I completed that while I was working. So I did, they call it open distance learning. So I was able to study and work at the same time to pursue my logistics career. And you know what, as they say, and that's when the magic started.
Awesome. Hey, that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that with us, Lerato. I've been to South Africa a number of times, and in fact, as an entrepreneur, you'll understand the challenges that we might have faced when I was there just before the global financial crisis. We set up in Rivonia, which is, I guess, not too far. You're in Johannesburg yourself, yeah?
Correct. Yes.
And,
so about 10 minutes away.
Yeah. So, and you're right. There wasn't a lot of talk about supply chain then. It was all logistics. We were going along famously for about 3 months. Then all of a sudden the GFC hit and the world fell apart economically. So we had to pack up and put our tail between our legs and head back to Australia at the time. But met some fantastic people and could see the development going on in the country. And of course, there's been massive development across supply chain. There's Jenny Froome, of course, whom we both know, who is the leader of SAPEX in South Africa. And I know you're very closely aligned with them. But so you got through some corporate business roles, and then the young entrepreneur came out in you, and you started your own business. Tell us about that journey.
So it is thankfully to the corporate roles that I've gone through. I started working as an exports coordinator. So, before I did the labeling, then I got into exports, which is the more, how do we get product out of the country and getting the documentation right. And when I started, nobody trained me. Nobody said this is the correct way to fill in a document. This is why the document is important for you to fill it in correctly. And as I grew, I went from exports to warehousing and distribution and, getting into the management level. And I realized that even at an operations level, we don't train people. We expect people to just learn on the job. And there are some basic fundamentals in our profession, supply chain, which is, I don't like calling it a profession because to me, supply chain is what makes the world go round. It's what everybody does every single day. But there are those fundamentals and those basics that people need to learn and to be taught about. And that's when I saw that, I could make more of an impact with my passion for supply chain and my passion for people and my passion for my country and my continent to grow, is to teach people supply chain, teach people the fundamentals and the basics of supply chain. And that's when Deffinity Training Solutions started. So we are a consulting services, but our main aim is training and development. We are looking at the operators that are often forgotten, your warehouse operators, for example, your materials planners, people that you wouldn't naturally say, let me actually take them for a traditional training course. So that's what we do as Deffinity, to look at those people and bring them into understanding the basics of supply chain. Things about inventory management, things about warehousing and distribution, as well as exports and transportation. So merging all of that in so that they too not only have on-the-job training, but also have the theoretical knowledge to get them to do the job and work for their companies and also grow. And I'd like to bring in the SMME angle as well, Kim, if you don't mind. My continent, we may be rich and we may be beautiful, but we are still very poor. And in order for us to grow, for our economic development to happen, we can't rely on big corporates. All over Africa, we need small, medium, and macro enterprises to grow. And they fail very often within their first few years. And I know a lot of people think it's cash flow and it's money, but it's because they don't also have the basic understanding of supply chain, how to manage their inventory. And if they knew that, they could grow and become more profitable. So Deffinity also tries to get into that SMME and say, how can we help you to understand what your supply chain is and define it and improve the processes of your supply chain? The more we do that, the more supply chains are going to grow within SMMEs, and we increase their profitability and, of course, the impact they make to economic development. In South Africa, SMMEs actually hire more people than large corporates do.
Yeah, I was in an interview with some folks back in New Zealand last week, and we were in the small business sector representation body, in fact. And as is with most countries, about 85 to 50% plus of tax is paid by small businesses. So you talk about the lifeblood of industry and of society for most countries, and I'm sure South Africa's no difference. While we're talking about South Africa, for those who don't know, and I'm one of them, it's not on the top of my head, about the size of South Africa in terms of the population and the major ports, the major cities in South Africa. Just share that with our listeners.
So South Africa is the hub of Africa. A lot of trade that happens comes through our ports. So we've got the Durban port. We've also got the Cape Town port. Those are the two biggest ones. So economically, South Africa is what I could say sort of drives the African economic engine. And a lot of business takes place here in South Africa. I mean, we are more developed than most of our brother and sister countries in Africa. And economically, I think we're rated second now. I think Nigeria is number one because of Bollywood politics. I won't mention anything, but we are very big, and supply chain happens here quite a bit. Yep. And a lot of trade happens in South Africa quite a bit. The major city, major province, Gauteng, which has got the major city with the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, is where all the action happens, which is where I'm based currently in Johannesburg. We are not very big in terms of size, but in population, I think there's about 54 million of us. That is a lot. So we're kind of very big, and we do have a very impressive GDP compared to our brothers and sisters in Africa.
Well, thanks, Lerato. I mean, we talked before about you commencing and starting the business, which would have been enormously challenging for anyone in anywhere these days to start a business.
Yes.
How many years have you been operating now with the training and development company?
It's been about 3 years. So, this lovely COVID, it's been so awesome.
Still going through the pain. I get it.
I know. So, it's showed, and it's actually what also drove me even harder. But I started my business in 2019. It was officially registered in 2014, but while it was being registered, I had to get myself as Lerato personally geared to be able to start training people. So therefore, that's I'm certified, and Abe Eshkenazi from ACM is going to kill me if I say production and inventory management, but that's how long ago I was certified. It is actually planning and inventory management, and I had to get those certifications as well as my logistics, transport, and distribution, so that when I say to you, I'm going to equip you with skills and theoretical knowledge, I know what I'm talking about. So I had to get those running first, and officially I started in 2019. Working with big corporations such as ACM, BBOPICS, including SAPICS, that have been really a pillar in assisting small businesses here in South Africa, especially businesses like myself that are young but headed into the supply chain, and not even headed, we are in the supply chain direction.
Well, we certainly like to get as much information from our guests as we possibly can, and you are no exception, and you've done a fantastic job in sharing an enormous amount of info with us tonight. So I really am sure that our listeners and our viewers and followers are gaining a lot of information about South Africa they didn't have about the supply chain. Your business is being advertised below with a link back to your registration page where people can make inquiries, and we definitely encourage people to hook up with one of the top 100 influencers in supply chain women in the continent of Africa. So no mean feat. So well done you, and congratulations on that. I know there are so many powerful and strong women across Africa. We're gradually catching up with quite a few. We've been in East Africa, as I mentioned the other day, a few weeks ago. Did some fantastic interviews there as well. So look, before I let you go, I know it's getting late where you are, and I just wanted to really touch on, you've made that massive step, taking that bold venture of setting up a business. You're a young entrepreneur. What are one or two tips that you can give other folks, including, of course, young women who want to get into business, whether it's supply chain or whether it's starting up their own venture of any sort? what would be one or two tips that you could share with our audience?
Sure. I mean, I don't want to like him. Being an entrepreneur, and I mean, you're a serial entrepreneurist as well. It's not an easy feat. It's not something that you go into and you think you're going to make money, and you don't go in it for the money immediately. I just want to say that out loud. So you need to find out, what is your passion? What is your passion? Why is it that you want to do? So quite interestingly, you and I follow Simon Sinek. And he's got the why, the how, the why, what, and how, I think. But it's definitely the why.
Mainly,
so
and his big
it's the why.
Is the why.
It's the why.
We recommend that to anybody, right?
Yes. So centered on the why. You need to figure out your why first. If I talk about my why, it's the love of supply chain. It's the love of my country. It's the love of growing young people and SMMEs. So I know my why, and my why has defined, and that has brought about the how and the what. Right. So I would encourage young people, young women, women in general, to start looking at that, and also understand that this world, unfortunately, is set up against us, and it's not our fault. It's nobody's fault, but we do have to work very hard. Kim, you always say that you're a 24-hour operation. So when you're going to be an entrepreneur, you must know that you're going to be a 24-hour operation. So that perseverance really has to be there, and you will be driven by your why. Your why will drive your perseverance, and therefore that's why I would encourage it. You need to know why you're doing it in order for you to do it. You don't do it because Kim is running a 24-hour operation, or because you just heard Lerato and she sounds so great and excited about business. You do it for yourself and understanding what you want to do. And I would also encourage that you read, you study, you position yourself, you go through webinars, you research, you find out about where your field and where you want to be, what role you are going to play, and what you are bringing, what your unique aspect is. For every Deffinity training solutions in South Africa, or anywhere everywhere, all over the world, there are bigger businesses that have been doing this longer than I have, and longer than you might have been. But what is your unique selling point that will make Kim say, I want to use Lerato's Deffinity training solutions rather than using a well-known company? So it's all about finding out your unique position, getting your why, getting yourself out there, reading, studying, pushing yourself, and never, ever giving up. If you don't, you know what, giving up is one of those things. I had a coach used to say, don't use the word try. Because, you're always like, oh, I'm going to try and enter business. So with business, don't try. You're not there to try. It's either you do or you don't. So make sure that you do. And when you do, whether you succeed or whether you fail, and failure is just a lesson of how not to do it. And that's what's going to encourage you to move forward and to push yourself, your business, and your community at the end of the day.
Hey, sage words. It's almost like you've had many more generations and decades to come up with all those ideas. So congratulations on your progress so far. You've made it through COVID, so I'm sure the business is going to go well. The name of the business again, Lerato?
It is called Deffinity Trading Solutions. And our motto is, we are defining your infinite training needs. So we find out what it is about you that you need, and we will help you to train your people. And that's what we do. So anybody looking for skills, and I want to say my market is specifically for supply chain. So any supply chain people out there, any companies that have got supply chains that need their people trained, we are here. Here's a hand.
Good stuff. And where can people find you, Lerato?
So we are on LinkedIn. I am personally on LinkedIn, so you can find me. It's Lerato Thabede. That's my full name. And the company has got its own page, Deffinity Training Solutions, also on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook as well as Lerato Thabede. So you can find me there. Those are all my channels. My website for the business is www.definitysa.co.za.
Wow. So I can feel the legend growing here. So Lerato Thabede,
Yes.
entrepreneur, top 100 woman in Africa, influencer in supply chain, and business owner. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you.
And we look forward to catching up with you and seeing how you're progressing over the next year or so.
Awesome. Kim, before I leave you, I just want to tell you, I love the way you pronounce my names. Let me just give you a background of where those names come from.
Please do.
My mother was 14 when she fell pregnant with me. And she gave birth at the age of 15. I mean, I've already told you I'm from the township, so you can kind of understand. But the name Lerato means love. And you can see I'm just a ball of love, right? And that was given to me by my mom and my dad to say that they love each other, and I was made from love. At the age of 14, not so sure, but I believe it. And the name Lungile, which means it is well, was given to me by my late grandmother, my late maternal grandmother, who found out about my mother's pregnancy when she was 7 months old, when she was already 7 months pregnant. And to her, it was to say, you know what? I understand you are young, but it is well. So that those names are just representative of everything that I am, love, and also knowing that it will be well regardless of the circumstances. And
Well
this
done.
is this Zulu girl from South Africa talking to you.
Well done. Feel the energy. And thanks so much for sharing the time with us. And we look forward to catching up with you on another panel with SAPIX maybe next year.
Yes.
Really enjoyed that. So take care, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you so much, Kim, for having me. And thank you to your viewers and your listeners. And for everybody who's listening or watching this, thank you for tuning in and giving me airtime.